I am Will the Thorough Clark.
No sponsor, so look, we'll just dive right into it. On this Giants podcast, we got several topics to talk about. Should they fire Farhan Zaidi?
We haven't seen a lot of big deals happen yet, but
considering the last couple off seasons, considering how the last couple seasons have gone, we'll take a look at historically what they've done with general managers.
Brian and Bruce, congratulations.
And we'll get into the off season so far. Why in the world anybody thought this off season would be any different than the last couple when they struck out on Arson, aka Aaron Judge, when they apparently had Carlos Correa locked into a 13-year, $350 million deal, and then they figured out his ankle was crumpled. Why in the world anybody thought this offseason would be any different? I have no idea. This is a team that fired their manager, Gabe Kapler, with a few weeks left into the season. Nobody wanted to play for Gabe Kapler. Nobody. With the platoons, with the openers, absolutely nobody wanted to play for that guy. So they had to dip all the way into the KBO league and sign Jung-Hoo Lee. So we'll get into the offseason. We'll get into should this organization change its philosophy? They're out here big game hunting, trying to sign big free agents. That's not how they won World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014. They developed young pitchers and position players. How about Tim Lincecum?
A lot of beer flowing, smoke in the air, I'm hoping.
How about Matt Cain? How about Madison Bumgarner? How about a catcher to catch him who might make the Hall of Fame, Buster Posey? How about Brandon Belt? How about Pablo Sandoval? How about Joe Panik? How about Brandon Crawford? Homegrown, drafted, developed players. You didn't go out and sign big name free agents. Maybe it's time for this team to dip back into the recent past and change its organization philosophy. But let's dip into the not so recent past. Look, they fired Gabe Kapler. The guy that hired him, Farhan Zaidi, had to watch Bruce Bochy win a World Series for the Texas Rangers this year. That had to go down like eating a load of bricks. You'll remember that during the Barry Bonds era and after the 2002 World Series loss, there was a lot of criticism surrounding Brian Sabean and the Giants management. So much so, and these are people who have been following the team for a long time. Remember when Brian Sabean referred to the people on the internet trying to get him fired as the lunatic fringe. And so looking back, this SF Gate article from 2004 from Glenn Dickey. Hindsight's 2020 because they ended up winning World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014. Not featured around Barry Bonds or big name free agents, but by pitchers and position players they drafted and developed. So the Giants have a history of sticking by their general managers. And a lot of times they're managers, as long as they're not so awful like Gabe Kapler. So this article was written in 2004. They were trying to get Brian Sabean fired, the quote lunatic fringe. He was able to hang around for 6 years before things actually really turned around. So it's very possible, if they like Farhan Zaidi, they're going to keep the guy around. Whether it's another year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, he's certainly not going to get fired anytime soon. Maybe if they start out 20 and 40, maybe. But the general manager job, that's not a job this organization, this team wants to make a hire. So what has Zaidi done this offseason? Well, we know, not a whole lot. They signed this guy, Jung-Hoo Lee, $113 million over 6 years. So it's less than $20 million a year. He's younger. I think he's 24. I think he's like 25, 26. Won the equivalent of the Gold Glove in the KBO league. And look, I don't have the KBO playing, so I wouldn't recognize this guy if he passed me on the street. But for this level of contract, this guy's going to have to hit probably first or second in your lineup. If he bats 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, and you're paying him $18, $20 million, there's a backlog in the outfield. And I'm sure we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this as the spring training and the season comes up here in 2024. You got Conforto for another year who opted in. You're paying $18, $20 million. You got Haniger on another 2-year deal who can't stay healthy. You got veterans of your team like Austin Slater, Mike Yastrzemski. You have a younger player in Matos. You might think about playing. They've totally given up on Heliot Ramos. He's 24 years old. So you add Jung-Hoo Lee to this mix. Look, somebody can play the DH spot now that Jack Peterson is gone. But you got to wonder how the outfield is actually going to shake out. You know a spot is going to go to Lee if he's healthy initially. Who's playing the other 2 spots? Is there a trade that is yet to happen? So I don't know. The money isn't that bad for this guy. So I'm certainly not going to criticize this signing until I actually see him on the field, see how this actually plays out. If he can consistently hit first or second in this lineup for at least 3 or 4 seasons and be a top of the order guy and play competent outfield, whether it's at the corner or center field, I think that's a fair price to pay for Jung-Hoo Lee. What I wouldn't do is sign a going on 31-year-old guy in Matt Chapman. And hey, no disrespect to the guy. Former Stockton Port, former Oakland A. I remember watching him play minor league games in Stockton. Tremendous defensive third baseman. And the bat, hey, it's been good at times. His 2019 season with the A's, 36 home runs, batted .249. Look, if he kept doing that, he wouldn't be a free agent and we wouldn't have a chance to get him. He's fallen off in the last 4 years. Last year, he batted .240, 17 home runs. Defense is still a plus, I'm sure. 4.4 WAR. But I don't want to sign a guy. Hey, if he wants to come on a 1 or 2 year deal, be my guest. His agent's Scott Boras. I doubt he's coming on a 1 or 2 year deal. It's going to take a 4 to 5 year commitment at bigger money than Lee to sign Matt Chapman. This is not how we built teams in 2010, 2012, and 2014. By signing what I would say are mid-tier free agents. By really signing free agents at all. You built players through the draft and you developed them. This is not a team that anybody expects is going to compete for a World Series next year. Why on earth you would give a 4 to 5 year deal or more to Matt Chapman makes absolutely no sense. I could maybe get on board throwing some money at Blake Snell, but I don't like it either. He's 31 going on 32. I get he just won a Cy Young through a career high innings. Second. He was 0.2 innings off from matching his career high. 180 innings. Won a Cy Young. Scott Boras client. This is another guy that it's going to be a 4 to 5 year deal. Maybe the first year, maybe the second year looks okay. But we've seen some of the back end of these deals don't look so hot. Anthony DeSclafani can never stay healthy. He's like good for a month and then he always gets hurt. Alex Cobb has been really good. Now he just had hip surgery. We'll see what his age 36 season looks like. Does he come back in time to start the year? Not 100% what his injury status is there. They signed a 34-year-old Ross Stripling, who was absolutely horrible last year. They signed Manaea as well. He was actually decent. Now, you could argue that Gabe Kapler didn't know how to use these guys. That Gabe Kapler misused Manaea, that he misused Stripling. I could get on board with that. You're not going to see an opener and then Blake Snell come in like if they signed him. This is a guy who's going to be 1 or 2 in your rotation with Logan Webb. But why on earth would a middling team like the San Francisco Giants sign a 31 going on 32-year-old guy to a 4 to 5 year deal at big money? It doesn't make any sense. We've got to get out of this big game hunting. We've struck out 4 times in a row, guys. Arson, aka Aaron Judge, strikeout number 1. Carlos Correa a week later, 13-year, $350 million deal, shatters under Correa's ankle. And then this offseason, with Ohtani and Yamamoto going to the Dodgers. We've struck out 4 times in a row. It makes absolutely no sense to continue this game offseason after offseason, chasing these big name free agents. Makes no sense at all. This is not how you built a championship team in 2010, 2012, and 2014. Let's get back to that. If we have to take a step back this year and watch Kyle Harrison struggle through some starts, I'm okay with that. We have a good young catcher in Patrick Bailey. He's obviously going to see a lot of playing time. I would love to see Casey Smith get an opportunity, preferably at his best defensive position, third base. Let's give him that opportunity. Luciano's obviously been a big-time prospect for the Giants for a number of years. He's only 22 years old. He looks the part when you see this guy in person. I've seen him play in person several times down in when he was in A-ball, and he was even younger. He was like 19, 20 years old. I mean, this guy looks the part. Big, wide shoulders, strong guy. Gets physical, stronger every year. Defensive shortstop, I think that's going to be a little shaky. I mean, we've been blessed. We had one of the best defensive shortstops for a number of years in Brandon Crawford. So the defense will take a step down. Now, I imagine this team, we've been hearing rumblings and rumors about this, about them signing another shortstop to pair with Luciano, just in case he gets out of the gate slow. Maybe he sucks. Maybe he gets hurt. And you're going to need somebody else to play that premium position. It's not going to be Casey Smith. I would try to play Casey more at third than anywhere else. Another reason why I wouldn't sign Matt Chapman. If we were on the cusp of winning a World Series and we needed a third baseman, by all means, spend the money, lock this guy up, and if the first couple years are good and the last couple years are bad, I don't care. If you needed a frontline starter to pair with Logan Webb, by all means, lock up Blake Snell. In some respect, I understand the Giants going after Yamamoto because Yamamoto's so young. He's 25 years old. Logan Webb's 27. He's a great guy to pair with. You pair Yamamoto, you pair Logan Webb together. So I get the idea there to sign Yamamoto. But you struck out. Just like you struck out on Ohtani. Just like you struck out on Carlos Correa. And just like you struck out on Arson, a.k.a. Aaron Judge. So I don't even want to hear about who's going to be a free agent next offseason. I don't even want to hear it. I don't care who it is. I don't care if he's from the Bay Area. We're not going to get him. You might be able to convince me, since you can't go out big game hunting and you can't sign these players, that maybe you could convince me as an organization philosophy to trade some of your top young players for a stud. You trade Kyle Harrison for a big-time player. You package Matos for something. You package Luciano for something. Fine. Fine. You better hope that works. But I'm much more willing to get on board to that strategy than think we're going to be signing anybody of the caliber of Judge, Correa, Yamamoto, or Ohtani. It's not happening. And then I wouldn't compound the problem and sign older mid-tier guys like Chapman. And I hate to call this reigning Cy Young Award winner mid-tier, but he is going on 32 years old, coming off a career high workload, coming off a contract season. I'm concerned that if you give Blake Snell 4 or 5 years of big money, you may have been paying for his best performance, which would be in the past. Chapman, look, defensively, this guy's going to be a stud for another 3, 4, 5 years. From what I remember watching him play for the A's and when he played in the minor leagues, this guy's, a vacuum over at third base. Tremendous. But we have young players we could play at third. We have other guys, J.D. Davis, Flores, if Casey Smith whiffs on you. I doubt David VR is going to get brought back from the dead. He's 26 going on 27. So he's probably on the way out, or organizational depth at this point. But I hate the philosophy of this team, thinking they're like the Dodgers or the Lakers and they can just go out and sign big name free agents. People don't want to play here. So you either got to trade for them or you got to take the model of when you actually won in 2010, 2012, and 2014. You developed young players. You developed young pitchers. And now maybe around the fringes of the roster, of the bullpen, you signed and or traded for guys. They traded for Javi Lopez. They traded for Affeldt, I believe. That's where you can work some of the magic. But let's get back to playing our younger players. We're not competing with the Dodgers this year unless a miracle happens. We're not competing with the Phillies, the Atlanta Braves. We're not competing with those teams. The Diamondbacks just made the World Series. We're probably not competing with them. If the San Diego Padres get their SHIT together, we're not competing with them. So let's take a step back. Let's not do anything stupid and sign lukewarm average players to big money contracts when we're not going to win anyways. We need position players all across the board. We could use a first baseman. There's question marks at shortstop. There's question marks at third. There's question marks at the other 2 outfield spots. Since you're going to give Lee a bunch of time because you just threw him $115 million. Let's give some of these young players an opportunity. It's going to look ugly, but we've seen this organization have a history of sticking by their general manager, sticking by their players. But let's stick with a philosophy. And look, guys, I hope you enjoyed the very, very first episode of this Giants podcast. We will be back to critique this team, critique the rest of the offseason, and I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you later.
I am Will the Thorough Clark.